Hey everyone, welcome back to Live Vulnerably.
Today we're going to talk about connecting with your heart, which, to be honest, when we started filming this video a couple of days ago, I was very much not connected to my heart, so it ended in us actually stopping and me crying because I felt like I had zero authority.
Yeah, it was good learning experience. We hear a lot in our generation on social media, kind of all over the place, this buzz phrase of be authentic, be you. But what does that mean? And I think we want to explore that today.
Yeah. So first, I'm going to talk about what it felt like to be disconnected from my heart and be trying to make a video for the page and for you guys when I was like, oh my gosh, I actually have nothing to say on this topic. I felt really ungrounded, I felt confused and rushed and really inauthentic. I tend to get really rambly when I'm not connected to my heart, so instead of forming like a thought that is good to share, I just kind of find myself dancing around language. Yeah, and I was totally doing that the last video we filmed, and to be honest, a lot of the videos we filmed before this. And so when we sat down to actually say, hey, this is how you connect with your heart, I cried because I realized I haven't been connected to my heart for, in fact, a very long time. Do you have something to say about that? But like, no?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe some of the effects that's had on you, knowing I wasn't connected to my heart.
Well, connecting to your heart as an individual and connecting to your heart in marriage are very different things, so
That's true.
maybe we do a video about that at some point.
Maybe just talk about that now.
I don't really know what place I'm speaking from, honestly. We haven't really talked about that at all.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think to be married to someone who's not connecting to their heart is a difficult thing. And we're talking about this phrase, connect to your heart. And you're like, what do you mean? We'll get there. Being married, I feel like I'm constantly going back to like center myself and find what is true and what I'm grounded and centered in. And that doesn't always seem to be a line-up thing for both of us. So I think when you're married to somebody, this is all one long sentence, end sentence. I think when you're married to somebody who is having a hard time connecting to who they are and what they believe about themselves and about you and about your marriage, it makes for quite a bit of tension. So when we've talked about having hard times, that right there is a real root of it. For the last, the first year of our marriage, I think we had a lot of tension that was a result of one, or maybe both of us just in many ways, not being connected to our own hearts. Alicia definitely being the one who saw the greatest effect on that, I think.
Who had the greatest effect
or saw the most with yourself?
Yeah, as someone who almost prides myself on being connected to myself and like self-care and everything, to enter into marriage and suddenly have nothing to like hold on to, I felt like my expectation was that when I got married, my husband would know me well enough right away to kind of like help me take care of myself. And I didn't even know that was something that I was feeling or anticipating in marriage. But warning, that's not usually what happens, especially in your first year. So, and nor is it fair to the other person. So I've realized that I haven't been connected to my heart because I was afraid of what I would find when I looked at it. And so we had a really vulnerable conversation last night about me just realizing like I don't know if I wanted to get married, like at all, like in life, not to Coburn. Coburn is wonderful and kind and compassionate, but just realizing I never addressed marital fear in my own heart. And so I disconnected myself when I started walking out a life that I had fear about. So
this is real, guys. We're like, yeah,
that's the point
in the midst of it. Yeah, I know.
So I have felt really like not myself. I felt like Coburn doesn't know who I am because I haven't been, like, I'm not even sure who I am. I've been so obsessed with my identity as being wife that I've like forgotten myself a lot. So being connected to your heart is vital for every connection that you have in your life, because like, first of all, we have to live from a place where we actually know who we are. And so that realizing that and facing that was a huge fear for me. And I'm also coming to the conclusion that most people don't want to connect with their hearts because they're afraid of what they'll find. And sometimes it sucks. And I spent hours last night crying in Coburn's arms. Crying in his arms because I was like, I don't know myself. Blah. And we tried to make a video and I have nothing to say.
I think when you switched over, you moved out of frame a little bit.
Oh, I did? Okay. So, yeah, I just feel like we have some authority in this area, but it's because we've walked through what it feels like to totally not be connected to your heart, and what it feels like to be married to someone for you. So I know that put a lot of burden on Coburn just to kind of like be the carrier really of the relationship, because when I wasn't connected to my own heart, I wasn't showing up for myself or for him. And a lot of the time that just comes from not knowing why. And you can't know why you do things. You don't have an awareness of the why behind your own behavior if you're not listening to what you're feeling and what you're going through and what you're afraid of.
If any of you guys watching this grew up in like Christian culture, it was popular to hear that your heart is a bad thing, which I don't believe, we don't believe. And that's taken a lot of unpacking of that lie. Your heart's not a bad thing. Your heart is not some evil thing to be shunned. And I remember thinking that, having that sort of like ingrained in a lot of life. Not necessarily from anybody in particular, not necessarily, family or certain church leaders. I just think that was a popular belief within evangelical church circles I grew up in. But we want to address that lie. Your heart is not a bad, horrible thing. In fact, your heart, your soul, your feelings, your emotions, your mind, your will, that's actually a beautiful part of yourself that, while it might not always be totally healthy, is still something that you should be connecting with and understanding and loving, and not just shunning and shutting it out. We posted a quote earlier this week from Dumbledore himself, of all people, that said something along the lines of, I haven't even read Harry Potter, so why am I quoting this? But he said something along the lines of like, what, when you suppress pain, it just makes it worse?
When you actually finally do look
at it. When you finally do look at it. I think a lot of us, like Alicia's saying, are afraid to look at our hearts for some reason or another, because there's pain there, or there's emotions there that are messy, there's gross feelings, there's things we might be ashamed of, there's things we might be really wanting to just shut out. But it only makes it worse when you don't look at it and you don't connect with it. This is a long intro to like what we're going to talk about, isn't it?
This isn't the intro anymore.
Oh, this isn't the intro anymore. Great.
So, yeah. I just realized I wasn't connecting to my heart because I was afraid of what I would see. And I would rather, it's like all of my emotion was in a backpack and I just like had it on me. And I was like, I'm not going to look in there. There might be like weird stuff that I don't want to know I'm carrying around, or just things that I don't have the energy to deal with. But I was essentially just dragging out dealing with it by carrying it around with me. So although I have to be honest, it took a lot of energy and tears and like frustration and pain and just annoyance with myself and truly with Coburn to get to connecting with my heart and actually look at what was blocking me. But now I feel so much lighter and so much more free because I actually just took the time to face what I was feeling. And yeah, it was ugly. I didn't like what I was feeling. But now I feel better because I actually just looked at it and then I could kind of move forward. I knew where I was standing on, what I was standing on, and then therefore how to move forward.
So how do you connect with your heart? How do you do that? I'm asking, and I asked the camera, I realize that, but maybe you're asking that. Maybe how do you do it? And sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, go ahead.
I think we're learning how to do that. I think we are in process of learning how to do that, and we don't always get it right. Case in point, we're like, hey, let's do a video about connecting to your heart. set it up to film it, go to do it, and realize it's not happening. And so, we have to figure that out. I think there are a lot of ways to connect with your own heart, though, that are they're gonna vary on like what place you're at emotionally. Do you have any thoughts for some of the ways to do that?
What do you mean?
For how to connect with your heart, like actually sit down and do
Oh
that.
yeah, I actually Googled it for practicality, because how I connected with my heart last night was I got really prickly because Coburn said something that I didn't like, and then he just like calmly like led me through what I was feeling. So that is a practical way, I suppose, is
Having a mediator?
have someone that you trust to help like walk you through your emotion. Friendships are really, really important like that. It could be a therapist or a counselor, but a lot of my friends and I joke that we do therapy ourselves for each other just by listening. Real life therapy. So that is something, just find someone that you trust, that you can process with. Another one, so love naturally opens our hearts and naturally like causes connection. It's just like a side effect. So think about something that you love, whether it's a human or a cat. Like our cat, for example, I think kept my heart open in a lot of ways this past year. But yeah, just think of something you love and you can almost even feel your heart shifting and being more open.
One thing we talked about in our creative video last week, where we talked about ways to create something, is we said to connect with your truest emotion in that moment. I think this goes for connecting with your heart as well. Sit down there with pen and paper and say, what's the most real feeling right now? Maybe it's not the most healthy feeling, maybe it's not the most true feeling, or maybe it's not the most thing that you want to ground your whole life on, but what's the most real right now? And then let the floor drop out from under that as you keep getting deeper into what that feeling might actually be rooted in. So an example of this might look like something that I have to do on a regular basis, where I sit down and I go, what am I feeling right now? And I go, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling like I really have to find a way to make more money. I have to create more posts if we're going to live vulnerably to reach more people. And then I start feeling that anxiety, and then I go, okay, well, what's at the root of this anxiety? Let me connect with my heart here in the matter. And when I let the floor drop out from under that, it usually has to do with something that I'm believing about myself falsely. Something like I need to perform for people's approval around me, or I'm only going to be worth something if I have something to offer other people. That lie is, of course, not true. It's rooted in me thinking that my value is only from what I can offer people, otherwise I'm worthless, and I'm not. And so maybe you found yourself in a similar position where you haven't wanted to deal with some of these messy emotions because you're not sure what you're going to find at the bottom of that. I encourage you, though, that the root for these messy emotions is actually going to teach you a lot about yourself and help you feel more connected, which ultimately is going to lead to living authentic and being yourself, which is what we kind of started this video on.
Yeah, and your behavior is a direct sign of something that you believe. And so a lot of the time we just don't know what we believe. We get our beliefs from our parents, from our friends, from traumatic experiences, from good ones. So it's just important to know why you're acting the way that you are and to have an awareness.
One more thing I wanted to leave you with. I've heard it said, and I think some friends of ours who are very wise have said this before to us, that feelings aren't wrong, they're just roadmaps to what the actual problem is. Feelings aren't the problem. If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling jealous, sure, maybe you don't want these feelings to permeate your life, but those feelings aren't actually the problem. Those feelings are a roadmap to a deeper issue, what you're believing ultimately about yourself and about the world around you. So we encourage you to look deeper and find what that might be.
Be vulnerable with yourself.
Yeah, that's where it starts. It starts there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thanks for listening.
See you guys.
Bye.